People in the United States enjoying a long weekend after July 4th yesterday, maybe sleeping off yesterday's celebrations and barbecues. Big parties, though, of course, across the country for the 4th of July. One of them had threatened to be very contentious, and that was Donald Trump's salute to America on the National Mall in Washington.
As long as we stay true to our cause, as long as we remember our great history, as long as we never, ever stop fighting for a better future, then there will be nothing that America cannot do.
Trump's critics had anticipated a politicized, polarizing address. His speech did focus on U.S. military history and prowess, but it was much less overtly partisan than many had feared. He stayed pretty close to script as he celebrated his salute to America, punctuated by those flyovers, including the stealth bomber there. He praised various figures, civil rights leaders, scientists, and, inadvertently, a Canadian who happens to be #1 trending on Twitter this morning, Laura McQuillan. There were some raised Canadian eyebrows yesterday as a result of that speech.
There certainly were, because this was a speech that focused so much on American patriotism. And then you hear this Canadian name pop up. So Donald Trump gave a shout out to many Americans, noting their achievements, fields like science, the arts, politics, many more, civil rights, just to name a few. But that one name that he did mention drew a lot of interest from Canadians who, of course, recognise it. Take a listen to what he said. I'm sure you'll recognise it as well.
Our quest for greatness unleashed a culture of discovery that led Thomas Edison to imagine his light bulb, Alexander Graham Bell to create the telephone, the Wright brothers to look to the sky and see the next great frontier. For Americans, nothing is impossible.
So that name, Alexander Graham Bell, he was American, but not when he invented the telephone. So that great achievement he's taking credit for there didn't actually happen while Bell was a US citizen. He was, of course, born in Scotland, which meant he started his life as a UK citizen, but then his family moved here to Brantford, Ontario, when he was 13 years old. He quickly became a Canadian, and it was in Canada that he came up with that great idea that's changed all our lives. It's what's led to us being able to post our Instagram stories every morning, things like that. So very much a Canadian hero, a Canadian entrepreneur, scientist, and it's interesting to see Donald Trump crediting a Canadian with helping to make America great again, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose you could look at it that way. Yeah, Brantford, Bedeck, Nova Scotia, where there's a whole national historic site devoted to Alexander Graham Bell. Hello. Check facts. People were saying to Donald Trump, there was a lot of fun fact-checking going on last night.
That's right. And looking at Twitter, not just Alexander Graham Bell that is lighting things up, but one other slip of the tongue perhaps for Donald Trump, who did have a bit of trouble at times during his speech following lines of facts. We know he was having difficulty reading his teleprompter because of the rain that was falling on it. But at one point he conflated two wars, one of which had happened in 1775, the Revolutionary War, and the War of 1812. So some 3 decades apart. He sort of lumped them together and said at some point during that period, the army took over the airports in order to achieve a wartime glory. Well, in terms of taking over the airports, there were no airplanes back then, so there were certainly no airports for those to be at, and that's what prompted all this fun on Twitter. I want to show you just one of these tweets. People using the hashtag Revolutionary War Airport Stories. Here's one of them. Dearest, the battle for Gate C4 was hard fought, but we prevailed. Alas, we ran out of ammunition and had to lob our stores of Cinnabons at them. The sacrifices of war try our souls. There are so many of these shared online, Heather. People were just really having a laugh at that moment. So I guess in a way, whether people were at the celebration, watching at home, or just taking part on Twitter, Donald Trump really did bring people together with that event yesterday.
Hashtag Revolutionary War Airport Stories. That's the one that you can find. That's really funny. All right, Laura, thank you very much.